So we finished cutting out the countertops for the top of the cabinets. This was the first one. Like I mentioned earlier, it has a big gap here. This one right here, we were able to make the gaps a lot smaller because we had this template and had an idea of what we were doing. We're not going to actually adjust those because those work, even though this looks nicer, but that's okay. The next step to do is to sand these and polyurethane them. Sanding was pretty straightforward. We started with a rougher grit to knock down any part of the wood that was unsmooth, as well as remove any possible contamination. Then, we moved to a higher grit, smoother piece of sandpaper to get a nice even finish, so the polyurethane would also be nice and smooth. But 2 notes about sanding that we made mistakes on. One is to always sand with the grain. You might end up tearing little fibers in the wood if you go perpendicular to the grain. The second is if you need to hold the wood while sanding, it's best to have a clean rag or a glove to wear, or else you're just going to recontaminate the wood with the oils from your skin. I ended up moving outside to continue with the sanding while Drew stayed inside with the polyurethane. If I had stayed inside, I would have just generated more and more dust, which would have increased the risk of it falling on the drying panels. I feel like I'm beating a bit of a dead horse here, but I'm trying to put a big emphasis on how much effort we put in keeping the panels as clean as possible. We may be amateurs, but it doesn't mean we're not trying. As far as protection goes, Drew was wearing a mask rated to protect against the fumes. I don't know what the engineers were thinking when they designed the mask, because they designed it in such a way that the strap that fits around your neck and the strap that fits around your head is adjusted by one strap. It took a lot of time to just get the mask to fit right. That, and it was also bigger than the other mask he had been using, so it was uncomfortable to wear. I know I'm complaining, but when you need to wear protective equipment for long periods of time, comfort is a must. Attaching the panels to the cabinets was easier said than done. Between the errors in building the cabinets themselves and cutting the panels, we had a small overhang on one side and a little bit of the cabinet frame exposed on the other. It became a bit of a puzzle to figure out what looked best, but once that decision was made, we used the nail gun to attach the panels. So we attached the panels to the cabinets. The two did not sit flush with one another. So what we had to do is take a random orbital sander and sand it so that it was flush, but of course ran into a problem. As we were doing the sanding, we accidentally chipped the panel right here. So to try to avoid that with the rest of the cabinet, we ended up going at an angle like this over the top, and then we hit it from the top. And that seemed to solve the issue. No more chips. So the cabinets are ready to install. Wasn't even aware you're going to be doing that many screws.
Me neither. Surprise.
With the cabinets in place, we took a few measurements and had our dimensions for the centerpiece of the countertop. Drew and I experimented with using the circular saw a bit here. We hypothesized that if the circular saw stopped following the level that we were using as the straight edge, then all we would need to do was go back and readjust the saw to follow the straight edge. In practice, it wasn't as foolproof as we had hoped. The panel still wasn't perfectly square, but each panel we cut gets better and better. So we screwed the cabinets to the floor. We did not screw the countertops to the cabinets yet because we wanted to make sure that we wanted to reduce all these lines here. And we were trying to discuss which side to put the hinges on because we thought we were going to put them on this side. We were debating, and then we realized it doesn't really matter because hinges aren't going to work because these stick out too far. So we either have a choice to cut these or forget the hinges. And we've decided to just take out the hinges. We're just going to have this be a removable piece and just permanently do that. So it's not quite as square as we wanted it. We're going to sand it down, but otherwise it's looking pretty good. Drew still wanted to err on the side of caution and make sure the countertops never came off. I think it was a little overboard, but I didn't see any harm with extra screws either. The simplest and most effective way to make sure the countertops didn't move during installation was to just have one of us sit on it. This also has the added benefit of demonstrating just how much weight the countertops can support. At this point in the project, we had to make a decision of whether or not to cut a hole for the sink. He was just a few days away from leaving when this footage was shot. If we hadn't cut the hole, he would have to take more tools with him when he left. You can see two sets of lines drawn here. After our first oval line was drawn, it was much easier to visualize the sink and how much counter space would be behind it, which seemed like a waste. So we drew the second oval. It didn't matter much how perfect we cut the sinkhole, because the sink extends further out, hiding any imperfections. The final step for the cabinets was to drill a hole so the hose for the propane tank would fit behind and out of view. Above the propane tank, we added a shelf for extra storage. So we finished polying this middle piece. As you saw in the video, we cut out a hole for the sink. We just put the sink in there as a placeholder because the plumbing is not done. We're not going to address that right now, but I just wanted to show you what it would look like. Over here, we set up the camp stove. We hooked up the propane. We do have a speaker right here. I don't know if that's going to be an issue over time with the heat warping it. We're going to find out and address it if it becomes an issue. Under the cabinets, we do have plenty of storage on this side. And I think overall, this came out really well. Plenty of counter space, plenty of space to work in right here. So I think this project's done, and Drew's ready to take this mobile. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. If you like this video, give it a like, and please subscribe. Thanks for watching.